Perfect. All right. We are live.
Just waiting for that link to pop up on YouTube.
Sure.
I will wait a couple minutes until people start coming in.
Works for me. Hello, Jeff. Okay, so we're live. We're running. We got a few on it. I know live is always more fun.
Absolutely.
But I got a hard stop at 1 o'clock Eastern, so we've got 55 minutes.
Okay.
So it looks like we have a few more filtering. Maybe we'll give it a minute, another minute, because I know we started a minute late.
Just trying to organize everything right now, so we're ready to rock and roll.
Good. I love it. Beautiful Sunday.
Yeah, weather's nice.
Love it. Mr. Schroeder, first time. Very cool, man. Very cool. You'll pick something up out of this session. Hello, Denver. Hello, Mr. Lawton. Good morning. Okay, so the way these things work is Craig is moderator, master of ceremonies. I really focus my attention on him and the questions. So he manages the YouTube chat, and he comes prepared. So he'll be managing and asking the questions, and I'll be answering. In fact, I closed the chat window so that I can concentrate over here. With that, Mr. Peterson, sir.
All right, welcome everyone to another Ask Me Anything with CEO of AITX, Steve Reinharz. My name is Craig Peterson, and I'm a long-term investor of AITX. I also am a member of the board of advisors, and lastly, manage the Discord chat. I'd like to remind everyone to subscribe and sign up for notifications to this YouTube channel. Before we get into questions, Steve, would you like to have any opening comments?
Yes, thank you very much. A few opening comments. The first is if you watched the piece yesterday, we attacked a few FUD things that get spread around. So Craig actually had the idea of having like a FUD-free Friday video where I might pick up 2 or 3 of the latest FUD items and address them head on. I think it's a great idea. We might do it every other Friday, just because most of the FUD's repetitive. It's, there's only about 10 FUD points that people go after. So I thought that was a cool idea. I also wanted to pass on an observation. which is we had a big day on Friday as far as stock movement, right? Up 14%. What I wanted to share is that we went up 14% on approximately $400,000 worth of volume, which isn't much. It's not much. It just goes to show, in my mind, in my opinion and in my mind, it goes to show that in the OTC, a relatively little bit of volume can create significant momentum. So if we had done $1.5 million in volume, where would we have ended up? I bring that to your attention because if you followed me for a while, or if you've been in the community for a while, you'll have heard me asking community members to share AITX, right? And give other people the opportunity to evaluate it, to read all the disclosures and disclaimers, and to determine whether or not this should be part of their investment portfolio. Because ultimately, the more eyeballs we get on what we're doing, the more volume, which in turn leads to potentially and theoretically beautiful stock gains. So that's kind of how that connection works. And that's my motive for asking everybody to share. Along those lines, it's not just in the community's kind of basket of responsibilities to promote, or not to promote, but to share. But we got a couple cool things happening on that front as well. So going to be something really cool happening in New York. I know at least that the AITX fans are going to be like, wow, that's so cool, which is great. Hopefully that gets us some more eyeballs. We have a lot of things happening this month. You know, a lot of the things that I've been talking about over the past several months are starting to produce this month as far as exposure and progress. You know, the K is coming out. The application to the QB is going out. We've got 2 major theatrical films being filmed. We got The Thing in New York. I got I think a news piece coming in Atlanta, out of Atlanta, gets published tomorrow, Monday, I think. So the list goes on and on and on. Anyway, the more eyeballs, more momentum, better it is for all of us. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Okay. So seems like there's a lot going on in the month of May.
Yeah, May's a big month. I think May is a big month. For me, it's my biggest travel month since pre-COVID. So one of those months where I'm living on the plane is what it is.
It's good that things are getting back to normal then. All right. So we'll jump into the first question from the Black Pearl. Thanks for your time, Steve. If you can you give us the monthly recurring revenue up to now, or will we have to wait till the 10K for that?
Material, you have to wait till the 10K. You're right.
Okay. Next question from Sab Daddy. Steve, how many technicians do we currently have building the machines, and are there enough of them? And if not, how many do you plan on adding to the team?
Right now, I think we have approximately 12-ish team members that are turning wrenches, roughly. Our staff is sitting around 85 plus or minus at this moment, and 12 of them are building units. Now, is it enough? That's a question that we talk about on our daily production stand-up call, right? What orders are going to be coming down? How are we going to produce them? Where's the material coming from? Do we have enough people who specialize in this part of the assembly process? What's our access to labor? These are all questions that we deal with every day. It's about as much an art as it is a science, because we don't know when the sales come in, you know, and we have so many of them. So the production team lives right now, and has for some time, in fear that we're going to get bombarded with a whole series of orders. And obviously we want that. And we've kind of written some contingency plans around that. The main thing in our favor is that we've set an expectation with customers that, you know, it takes 30 days to get their units. So when we get the 1,000 shells in, from a production standpoint, we're going to move into a more efficient serial production process where the team pumps out a certain number of roses every month. and sales team's got to go sell them. And then we're going to move from doing that at Rosa to doing that with Ava, and then hopefully doing that to Romeo, and then Scott and Wally, in that kind of order. But it's a very fluid, as you could tell just by me giving these complete answers. It's fluid, it's not exact, there's an art involved. But we will need more people. I've told the production team to expect to increase their team by 100%, to double their team before the end of the calendar year. And I have extolled them to find labor-saving automation that can be applied to our production process as a continuing task.
Okay. Here's a question from YouTube Extra Cash 2. Are the TV commercials you're talking about going to be network, cable, or internet, some or all?
So definitely cable. So we bought 960 spots that will be played through our new to the street engagement on those episodes. So I think that goes on Fox B, like Fox B channel. I don't know all the channels that it goes on, but it's going to be heavily on cable. Naturally, we will be sharing them on the internet, of course. Will network pick some up? I sure hope so. But I don't have any plans of paying for network advertising. We have plans and strategies to continue to get network coverage organically, like we've gotten so far. And much like tomorrow's article, which I have no idea what it'll be like, but tomorrow's news article on TV, it's either CBS or NBC. But that type of coverage is what we're looking to do organically.
Okay. Next question comes from Coach P. Steve, I love the company and what you are doing. Do you have any news on some cool or new innovations coming up soon?
Coach Plute, hello. New innovations. Yeah, we're working on a product called Rio, which we will announce and show, if not before, at the GSX show in, I think it's in Orlando in September. So we're working towards that as far as new hardware goes. We're working on a lot of software projects, like you've heard me say, we're really a software company at heart. So we've got incident management under development right now with the coaching of one of the largest security companies in the world. We're seeking to disrupt a market that's largely controlled by a company called Imix SureView. So that's something that's coming out that'll be put in use by many, if not all, of our dealers right off the bat. Of course, we've got Red Light My Way is hasn't been fully deployed yet. I think the first deployment will be this month with that college. But in the meantime, we're using it more widely as a team and refining. That's a really cool one. And we have another software project that we call Hope, HOAP, Homeowners Association Platform, which in non-RAD world would be called like a resident access portal for residents to be able to set visitors. This allows AVA to be used for HOAs and that kind of thing. So those are exciting software platforms that we're building. And I'll remind everybody that what we're doing is we're rewriting the entire security and facilities industry software code. Whereas right now in the industry, it's incredibly fragmented. You got guys focused on HOA, focused on facility, focused here, focused there. And there's a few reasons for why that happened, but either way, that's where it is. And I think depending on how closely you follow me, I've been saying that in the future, as this fourth industrial revolution continues to gain steam, I believe the security and facilities industry is going to evolve from being this very fragmented industry to being more of a normal American industry with, a top 3 group of companies leading the way, and then a handful of second tier companies. So obviously, since we feel we're kind of creating this, we want to be in the top in the top tier, and that requires this bold idea of bringing everybody into the fourth industrial revolution together.
Okay. Next question comes from Khalid. Excited to see IAPA on the schedule again this year. How are the Six Flags deployments going, and any update regarding the first airport deployment?
So IAPA may have come off of the list. So we're thinking about it. We're talking about it. IAPA, we've got some relationships there with the Six Flags team. We got Red Hawk out of that show, which was great. There's some other sales activity happening that we got out of that show. I'm kind of, balancing if we still want to go, because I've since added another show in Nashville, the BOMA International show in Nashville at the end of June. So kind of like, I don't want to be that company that's like at every single show just because there's a show. So, but as you could tell, because I'm really open on these calls in my life as well, it's a decision that we've got to make one way or the other. Six Flags is going, but again, I'm under. I need to follow their lead in terms of what they want to release, when they want to release it. I will share that we've got 22 Rosas deployed around 2 parks and 2 Romeos, and it's very cool. And beyond that, I just have to defer to what we've committed to with them. So I'll leave that to them.
Okay. Any update on the first airport?
Well, the first airport is a West Coast airport, and it has had its installation date delayed over and over and over and over again. A little bit frustrating. When you're dealing with one of the world's largest airports, there's just a lot of boxes to check. Anyway, my last expectation was that they were going to be installed Thursday or Friday of last week. They did not get installed Thursday or Friday of last week. They will be installed now, I'm told, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. And funny-ish is that, the sale was closed so long ago that, we evolved Rosa from the 180s to the 3.0s. So I had them mix up the order deliberately, so that they've got a couple rows of 3.0s that are going to be on like the ground level where there's maximum public exposure, and then the 180s in the rest of the structure as part of that deal. So that's kind of fun. So that's kind of a bit of a spin that we were able to use to our benefit, despite the fact that I would have rather got the units in earlier.
Yeah, at least they get a couple 3.0s coming towards them.
They're so night and day better,
Oh, they look fantastic.
Oh,
that one that Prudential posted.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that one looks
Detroit,
fantastic.
Yeah. He's great. We got a lot of stuff happening in Detroit. He's a big part of that.
Here's another question from YouTube. Are you able to send sales brochures and or information to individuals for promotion of the products, or must only the authorized dealers try to sell the products?
Yeah. To answer the question, we could send anything to anybody. Much prefer that, team members that are part of RAD and are trained and can marry problems to solutions, lead the way in terms of client engagement and making sure that we've got good fits. We've had some success with some investors getting interested in the product and deploying them. Like notably, our Alaska deployment was AITX driven. We have a handful, or probably a closer to maybe 10 people across the country that are just active investors spreading the word. I got an email a couple days ago from a long-term, amazing, just very accomplished professional, a pilot, actually, commercial pilot, wanting to introduce us to Choctaw casinos out of Oklahoma. So we get a lot of that, which I flip over to the sales team to do the follow-up and engagement. The more irons in the fire, the better. The more seeds we can plant, the better. So I love it. I encourage it. Ultimately, my job is to focus on the fundamentals of the company and build the sales and build a real company that can achieve our ultimate goals. So I love the leads, but there's a little bit to learn. Like how do you use a ROSA? What does a ROSA do? What problems do we have? Are we talking to prospects that have law enforcement backgrounds or commercial security backgrounds, or are they small business owners? Or so there's some complexities to it, and my biggest concern is setting expectations that the product can't meet, and that's why we want to have control or at least heavy involvement.
Okay. And don't forget to use the device placement app too.
I used it yesterday. It was so cool. I'm going to put a ROSA up on my house here, or two ROSAs, but I was only able to get one out of production because we got other things that they got to go to, and I had to kind of like wrestle to get it. But it's going to go up. I use DPS app. I showed my wife. I was like, "Hey, this is how it's going to look," and she's like, "That's so cool." She loves DPS. It was her idea to use the app. So there you go.
Okay. Next question comes from the Black Pearl. With the first ever sale in workplace security setup, where a stationary robot calls a mobile robot to respond to a crime or suspicious activity.
Yeah.
Have you started to see a trend in more companies looking at that type of scenario for security solutions, or is it mostly stationary units calling human manpower?
Well, it's mostly stationary units working autonomously to avoid having to call human manpower. That's really where our bread and butter has been. What we found and what we've got statistics to show is that we can overwhelmingly diffuse a situation autonomously, which is the whole point of what we're doing, right? Trying to relieve the need for manpower. But different customers will use their platforms different ways. Some will use them more traditionally, some will use them more autonomously. It's all over the board. And that's the whole point of the platform that we've built. We don't want to tell customers how to build it, how to use the systems. Every customer has different needs. So we need to have a platform where they can, click the right buttons and it can operate the way that fits their needs. That'll give us the most appeal, the broadest applicability. It is kind of exciting having the mobile unit run out based on a stationary unit getting called. That facility where this is going in California has had numerous incidents over the years, and the particular client has tried many ways to mitigate it. And I'm not going to get into the stories around that, but I think it's going to be really interesting. I expect that we're going to have action at that location. And I'm hoping that that'll turn into a fantastic case study.
Here's a question from YouTube. Any issues with production shipments from China, chips, frames, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, when the pandemic started, we got the questions a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we at the time had been stockpiling the electronics pieces that we needed for what the production line looked like at the time. A friend of mine works for a chip manufacturer. So like 18 months before, it kind of started becoming public, he was telling me just, you got to order, you got to buy, you got to start hoarding stuff. And after about 6 months, I started seeing some signs of that. So we did. So we were okay for the first bit of the pandemic, maybe the first year of the pandemic. But of course, what happens is that our product line evolves. So as we started getting into new items like the 3.0 line, which of course was developed during the pandemic, and then we developed our FPGA process, which of course was also brand new. So we're doing a really, really, really good job of navigating through supply chain issues. At this point, we've got some great relationships with our major supply chain partners, as well as with a couple logistics partners. Because logistics is not just the manufacturing, but it's also getting the product to you and out to our customers. So we've formed a great relationship with a shipping company. I think that there's a secondary one that the guys use as well. We also hired an AITX investor during this process, who now manages our purchasing department and has been just a fantastic asset for us, and of course is a delightful human being. But yeah, we've been making the investments. Would I say that we have challenges? You know, for me at this point, it's so normal that we have to run some processes with multiple parallel development efforts, so that when the project finishes, we're not locked into a single vendor, we're locked into multiple vendors, right? So that's a pain in the ass, but it's just how it is now. So we don't wake up and we're like, oh, drat, there's a problem on supply chain. Like, we wake up expecting it and working towards it and mitigating it. So that's kind of how it feels. Just feels normal to us now.
Okay. Here's one from Sab Daddy. How will the recently lifted mask mandate affect the Scott units placed in the airports?
I don't know. The airport Scott units, despite coverage to the contrary, media gone wild, the units were not advising people to put their masks on, which, some news elements decided, and infotainment, I don't know what you want to call it, decided that the units were doing that. It was not the case. It was never the case. Those units are there for other purposes that that particular airport can share at their discretion. Again, it's customers' information, not mine. So I don't see any impact. The interesting thing about the mask analytic that we created early in the pandemic, like more or less in March or April of 2020 is when we kind of announced it, is that it got more press than it did sales. And it was just fascinating. It was fascinating. But I think that because I'm analyzing this in real time, as Americans and North Americans, I would say we largely, it feels that we just wanted this to go away. We didn't want to invest in things to mitigate it. We wanted to do the minimum. We wanted to have the minimum disruption to our lives. And it was just such a fascinating and unprecedented time in modern times, since the last pandemic. So no impact on the mask mandate issue at all.
Okay. Follow-up question to that. What exactly is the issue that the airports are looking to address, and why did they choose the Scott to do it?
I would have to defer that back to that particular airport, actually to both airports. It's not in my, I'm not authorized to share
Okay.
what problems they have. Security stuff.
Okay.
I can share, that, customers, again, since we're a platform, customers will choose different pieces of the platform to use based on the day, based on the time of the day, based on what's the current issue. It might be, physical presence reinforcement. It might be, baggage handling. There's a bunch of different things. So the missions change throughout the course of the deployments as well.
Okay. The next question was already answered by a press release this week by you with the Nightingale drones.
What was the question?
It was from Reno Joe. Are you looking into a drone combination with components established? If so, will the drones be internal or a company acquisition?
Well, I mean, it's a very what's the word, starts with an S, speculative type of question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I mean, I think the best way that I answered it was with this beginning association with Nightingale. From an acquisition standpoint, certainly we're always looking to acquire the right companies, for sure. Drone companies are not at the top of my list. There's two other categories of companies that I am actively looking for, and I have been for some time. But drone companies, a lot of entrepreneurs think, myself included, think that, the companies that they're growing and building are worth, a bajillion dollars. And oftentimes their business plan will never achieve that. Of course, in our case, with our products, our platform, our people, everything that we're doing, I believe that we will. But it'll flush out, it'll mature. I've seen new technology come into markets before, most closely in the late 90s with digital video recorders, and in the space of 2 years, there were 700 companies, pitching it. And then, of course, it trimmed down to 50 or so between A players, B players, and C players. So that's what's happening in drones right now. It's certainly going to be a big market. I haven't heard the FAA really looking to reduce the onerous requirements on autonomous drone piloting right now. So for that reason, I don't see the market growing in the United States exponentially until that happens. It physically can't. So companies like Nightingale are getting a practice and exposure in Europe and in Central and South America. But I got my eye on it. I got some bigger fish to fry in terms of who I'd like to buy in the meantime, though.
Okay. Next question comes from Brett. How many of the Romeos that have been press released or deployed are from the letters of intent the company has?
It's a good question. I haven't really married them up. I would say maybe half. I would say if we've press released 8, and I don't know if we've press released 8, maybe we have, I don't know, but I would say half are off LOI and half are new.
Okay. Question from Oscar. Will we be possibly seeing RAD products in MLB or NFL venues this year?
Unlikely.
Okay. Question from Shark's Mom too. Steve, I'm intrigued by our communications company partnership. When can we expect to get a name and learn more about this role in selling RAD?
I'm excited about it too. I still think it's potentially our biggest single customer. So we met them. We had our last significant interaction, to my knowledge, because Mark manages that account. But I met with the lead guy in Vegas a couple months ago, and he shared with me a bunch of the different things that he had to do along the way, including doing some staffing on their side and some positioning and a lot of work on their side. So that's underway. I really hope by this summer that we're live, but it's a company that does between 10 and $20 billion in sales every year. And from, and I thank you, Shark's Mom, for being with us for as long as you have been, but things take time. And we'll get there. We'll get there with it, but I'm really excited about that one. That one, there's a lot of things that happen that give us legitimacy and credibility. When airports pick us up, when major theme parks pick us up, when we do deployment here, when Allied Universal does something with us, right? These are all big elements of credibility. This one, I think, comes over the top out of all of that. So, yeah, you just have to stay tuned. Hopefully this summer.
A follow-up to that is, what is their target audience, and are they selling to small businesses?
They are selling to small and medium-sized businesses. They also have some very large chains. So, I mean, it's a communications company, so huge base of customers that they want to bring this to. Our product, of course, lends itself on the commercial side, and they've got, I don't know, tens of thousands of customers in that space.
Here's one from Pantera21. Steve, this nugget was buried in your latest press release. RAD's parent company, AITX, intends to file for uplisting for listing on the OTC QB within 10 days of its filing its year-end 2022 10K. Is this the uplist filing you've been talking about?
Yes, it's been kind of that last significant line of the last three or four press releases. And it's really, you know, just there from like a FUD standpoint, just to remind everybody, what's happening and what the commitment is. I think the timing for the uplisting is going to be quicker than the 10 days of the uplisting request. And and we'll see what happens, and I'll just again add my opinion onto it. Everyone's so excited about this uplist to QB, and again, I remain somewhat ambivalent about it, and I will repeat that I'm doing it based on request from the AITX community. I don't know how much it'll move the needle necessarily. The main reason is that in years past, you had to be on the QB in order for different institutions to give you institutional funding, primarily from our perspective for the S3 that we have. So because of how the OTC progressed the last couple of years, companies like AITX, gaining significant momentum and having exciting products and having an exciting future, these institutions now work with us on the pinks. So from my perspective, there's no noticeable difference in terms of access to capital, whether I'm on pink or QB, because I've already got it. From my perspective, from a reporting standpoint, nothing changes on our side. We've been full SEC reporting from day one. So for us, it's an application, it's the payment of fees, it's a press release. Maybe the OTC will say, hey, look, we just uplisted somebody to the QB. But again, I'm ambivalent about it because I don't think that it'll bring any new eyes. I think for us, the next milestone that could, trigger some growth in the PPS, and again, this is my opinion. I will caution everybody by saying, read the disclosures, read the disclaimers. Anything can happen. But I know that at 10 cents, different brokerage houses cover us and allow us to be traded and talk about us. So that's really, and if you've been following along, you know that I want to get back to that 10-cent mark for those reasons. And that's kind of my little monologue on QB.
Okay. Next question comes from Maddie Ice. Hey, Steve, there's a lot of talk about the 100-unit order within the community. Is this something that we should realistically be expecting this fiscal year?
Yes.
Here's one from YouTube, Bob Winnie. Can you ask Steve which URL we should be directing clients to, since there's two, AITX and radsecurity.com?
Radsecurity.com for potential clients. AITX.ai for fans and interested folks.
Okay.
From AITX.ai, you're going to be able to get to the three subsidiaries that we show on your screen there, RAD, RADM, and RADG. Whereas if you're a client, you're not going to care that RADG is producing an FPGA board that's going to become an OEM product. You don't care necessarily where Romeo comes from, right? So radsecurity.com is more focused on problem matching to solution from RAD. Whereas AITX is more broad information meant for due diligence by potential investors, fans, and the media.
Okay, here's one from Oscar. The Nightingale security collaboration, was it driven by communication between you or a customer looking to fill a need?
Jack and I have sat on panels together before, pre-pandemic, and been following each other's companies. And we both went through, that dip, that real hard dip that a lot of our long-term shareholders like yourself, Craig, went through with us. So we kind of, whereas we've been working on ground mobility and stationary devices and rewriting this software platform, he's been solving some very specific problems in creating, in his words, the most boringest drone ever, right? Boring is good. Just do what you need to do. I don't want to think about it. So he's and I've seen him have some great success. And I have if you follow me, you know that I've got a lot of skepticism when it comes to any other company. So just the fact that we've kind of been in the space together to some extent, and I've kind of had a relationship with him, um, and that we both know that we need this for each other's customer bases. We were just connecting in Nashville last week at the Security Next show, and we kind of both, like, leading up to the show, we were talking back and forth and discussing things, and we just kind of inked the idea at the show and came out with the press. So the timing was right for both of us.
Okay. Now, how long would it be before you have a marketable product that comes from the collaboration?
A few days worth of work. It's not a big deal with how both of our platforms are built and how our devices can already call stationary products over. For us, we're just sending that information to him, and he's already going to different points on his maps. So it's, from a dev side, it's negligible. From a testing side, it's more significant because it's going to be a few days of tests and make sure it all works. But it's not a heavy lift for us, for either of our companies to do. The question is who's going to be the first customer in the US or Canada, and can we get the right the right licenses and permissions and variances in order to do it. So there's things happening in Europe that make it again a little bit more interesting because Europe has different rules and a little bit more relaxed on the drone coordination. So it's more in the short term something overseas than we'll see on in North America to my best expectations.
Okay, so maybe a Civitas type thing.
Yeah, maybe Civitas. But we've got other things happening in Europe as well.
Okay. Next question comes from Darwin 1993. You have had some projection of some potential leads from ISC West show to close by the end of April. Is that time frame still valid, or do you think it'll be the end of May?
It'll definitely be the end of May. That's what the senior staff had come back and they had said. I pushed for end of April, but I can't push a customer to sign if he's not ready to sign yet. And of course, the AITX community wanted April, but it's looking like May for sure.
Okay. Here's one from Bo. Good afternoon and happy Sunday. Steve, on April 19th, 2022, in one of your posts to the Discord, you said, once our new ERP is deployed, parentheses, within the next couple of weeks, is this the timing still on track, or will it happen before the release of the 10K?
Bo, really enjoy your contributions and chatting with you on the Discord, by the way. So that's very, very cool. I find you're interesting and informative, positive. I appreciate that. Thank you. The timing of the K and the ERP are not really related. A lot of the K right now rests in the auditor's hands. I need to call them tomorrow and say, hey guys, we started this so early. We were supposed to be finished by the end of April. I pay my bill within 48 hours of getting it from these guys. Got a relationship. We've been to their offices in Chicago. What slipped? Because it didn't slip from us. Now, I do have to update the business description, which I have not done yet, but no one's like, as soon as someone says, Steve, you're holding up the K, then boom, I'll bang it out, right? So I got to find out what's going on with that. I think I'm targeting May 16th now. The implementation of the ERP has happened already. So last week we started processing sales orders through the ERP. And in order for sales orders to be processed, the fundamental buildup of the ERP needs to be in place. So all the accounts need to be in, all the accounting history. Most importantly, the device build of materials need to be in, and inventory and finished product need to be in order for you to be able to meaningfully process sales. So that happened last week. Certainly, we're far from having a fully implemented ERP, but we're live-ish, running in parallel with our with our legacy systems. And I think everyone is excited about it because we know it's the only way to scale. And everyone's also a little bit apprehensive because it's a little bit different and it's change. And as we know, change is hard. But I'll share with everybody, you know, if you're going to be a legitimate business expecting to do hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, you must invest. You must invest. You have to have an ERP. You've got to get your cyber stuff in line, right? You've got to operate like that. And it's been very interesting, our journey at AITX, sharing all of these little elements along the way. I enjoy sharing it. It's kind of fun. At the beginning of the process, it was uncomfortable because it was, coming from operating private businesses, you never have to do any of this. To now, because of the relationship I have with the community, with gentlemen like Bo and Craig, yourself, um, I I want you to know what's going on. I want you to see the progress, um, and that's where we are now. So again, long answer, short question. Thanks, Bo.
Here's one from Brian63. When a customer places an order with you, is there a down payment placed that covers your labor and materials?
No, no, there's not. We'll usually bill like an implementation fee uh, fairly quickly after receiving the PO, and then we bill at the first of every month for that forthcoming month's services.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, the way that we fund is one of our strengths because it allows us to go on a SaaS model because some of our products are fairly capital intensive, which would be a blocker to sales if we couldn't go on attack on a SaaS model, if we have to ask for people for the capital up front to build. It's just not how you deal with Fortune 500 companies. You have to come in with a certain amount of muscle and capability to be taken seriously, and that's where we have, and that's why our AITX community is on this crazy ride with us.
Yep. Question from Broke. Is standstill in development stage? Can it be deployed if requested to date?
Yeah, stand still in development. The models that I saw leading up to the ISC West show didn't have a few critical elements that I needed in the product. And it wasn't just me who said, you got to make this better for these reasons, but the team knew as well. And that's one of the things about engineering. You might start out a certain way and you learn along the way. I mean, there is no other product like Stan. It doesn't exist. Much like a lot of our products, there's no model for you to follow, right? Like, just for fun, you've seen this before, Craig, but I keep this 1904 telephone, on my desk. Obviously, I just pull it off my desk. Hello, Craig. Hello. To remind myself that before this was invented, nobody knew what a phone looked like, and it didn't even have a dial pad. So I just kind of keep that in mind, that we're in a white sheet space, and when you're in that space, hey, it's sometimes, often rather, particularly with Romeo as a better example, it's one step forward, two steps back. Those motors aren't going to work. We thought they were going to work. We engineered them to work. They didn't work. We got to try again, right? And this is despite the fact that on paper we engineer it and we've got the tools, where we're articulating the drive motor for Stan, on our screens, and everything is exactly the right components. Until you build it, you don't know. And that's why you do this 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, or vice versa. Yeah, that's where we're at with Stan. Now, at the same time, the Avas, you've seen the Ava press releases, those are going. I feel a lot of momentum on Ava, much as like we kind of had a bit of, we did a lot of early work on Rosas, and then now we've shipped 200. We're kind of, I think, at those finishing stages of the Avas, and then hopefully we get that. And that's a higher profit product for us. It generally includes remote services, which we get a small cut of as well. So it's nice with Ava moving from a high volume product like Rosa to try to get a high volume, higher margin product like Ava out there and get it supported from Stan when Stan is ready.
Okay. Next question comes from Tyran3YT. Which sectors, for example, retail, corporate offices, transportation, campuses, are showing the most interest in RAD products?
It's so impossible to say because I would say that each one of those sectors, and throw in municipalities and throw in logistics, we've got strong activity and strong deployments in each of those categories to some extent. So no category has emerged, throw in casinos for that matter too. No category has emerged as like the best category for us. We definitely have a push coming with campuses, both corporate campuses and college campuses, as part of our Rad Light My Way push that starts this month. So hopefully, from a sales perspective, that becomes the leading driver of sales for some of the products like Rosas. So we'll see. It's interesting because in business school we're trained to focus on one product, do one thing really well. And sometimes investors come to me and like, what about that? And I'm like, well, I don't care, start your own business and do that if that's if that's what you think. We have a bigger mission, we have a bigger goal. This is a land grab. This is kind of a let's go get this done. And so we're approaching it from a bigger viewpoint. That's why we've got Ava and Rosa. The other reason is if our expectation is that there's three big players in this space going forward, what are those players going to have? They're going to have this entire line, this new way of doing things, and that's what we're working towards. So, you got to, in my role, I've got to take myself out of being, a third industrial revolution entrepreneur and saying, how does this look in the fourth industrial revolution? Because it's not the same as how businesses were previously built.
Okay. A follow-up question to that. Are there any surprising market verticals that you never thought of that have entered into the market that?
No, I've always, wherever I've seen a guard or I've seen somebody want a guard has always been my market. And that's everywhere. So nothing new has really emerged because of my initial outlook.
Okay. What do you this one's from Rocco 20. What do you expect to be the top 3 revenue generating devices in the fiscal year 23?
I don't know, Rocco. Rocco, it's good to see you. Is this Rocco 20?
Yes.
All right, Rocco 20. Hey, man. I don't know. Rocco. I haven't put pen to paper or spent any mind space on it. The reality is it's difficult to forecast because, hey, we move a bunch of Romeos, right? We got 9 Romeos create the same revenue as, 9 Rosas create the same revenue as 1 Rosa, plus or minus. So, bunch of Rosas, bunch of Romeos off the bat can sway this thing. And obviously that's one of the things we want to do. But I don't know, Rocco. I'm sorry.
Okay. A question from Dewey. Steve, to get more eyes on the stock itself for the general public, can we get AITX visible on such units like Scott?
I would love to. Understand me clearly. I would love to. The challenge is that we customize the wraps on Scott and some of the other products to the customer's desire. And we want, our first goal is to make the implementation as comfortable and exciting, as successful as the customer as they want it to be. So although I want, and we as a community want, AITX plastered everywhere, and we want the customer on record every second of every day saying how much they love it, those goals aren't necessarily consistent with our customer goals of securing their facility and doing it in mostly quiet fashion. But no, sure. I mean, I've tried to sneak it on to a few different designs from time to time. And inevitably it gets cut or pushed, whatever, and that's fine, Dewey. But Um, the other piece of it is we kind of have a bit of an interesting dichotomy in the market. On the one hand, we build the RAD brand name in security and facilities, because that's the market that it lives. And that's rad. Like I would imagine, I gotta believe 3/4 of security facilities know about RAD or have seen RAD at this point. No, maybe not that high. I don't know. It's a big market. But AITX, on the other hand, confuses the customer. Are you RAD? Are you AITX? What's artificial intelligence? I just need some security, guys. Don't make this complex. So we kind of keep it direct with the radsecurity.com site for security facilities buyers. And then we have more of our vision and subsidiaries shown in AITX. But there's again, a long answer, Dewey, but a great question. Thanks for the opportunity to give a full answer.
All right, we're approaching 1 o'clock. Got one more for you, Steve. Do you have an update on the delivery vehicle project?
No. What I can say is that Romeo itself is in its 2.0 version or 2.1. I forget the version number that's been assigned to it in terms of this batch of 10, this first batch of 10 that are shipping out or in use or in build or whatever the state that they might be in. Where we're at is there's a minor version upgrade that we need to decide to do we wait for those new pieces to come in and build the next 10, build the next batch of 10 based on that? Do we build the next batch of 10 based on the 2.x model that's being produced right now? And when do we get into the Romeo 3.0? Because you guys will note that the Romeo 2.0 is still kind of like, my design with Ian, out of Canada, perfecting it. And actually we used a handful of industrial designers on Romeo, or I used a handful of industrial designers on Romeo, but it's not our tour. They're not our tour design. So they're not, you'll notice that they don't have the consistent look like the new Scots Wallis, Avas and Rosas. So, then the other question is do we start putting the work into the Romeo 3.0 design? So it's kind of, this is just real business that I'm happy to share. These are the questions. Now I know that, and I revel, and I take great joy in sharing full and complete answers to these questions, because most CEOs that I've seen will, number one, they think they need to have all the answers. And it's insincere to think that you do. If you had all the answers, it wouldn't be CEO. CEO's job is to sort through what the questions are that are important, prioritize them, and work towards the best answers on difficult questions. And our community is great at asking the difficult questions. And so I give the full answers. But that's where we're at with Romeo 2.x and 3.0 specifically. That leads into the delivery vehicle, because do we commercialize the delivery vehicle based on Romeo today, based on the Romeo 2.x plus 1, or based on the Romeo 3.x? And we haven't sorted through those exact answers yet.
Okay.
Listen, if you got a couple more that you think are important, let's do it. It looks like I got a few extra minutes here.
All right. These are some questions from the last one. Cody 107 says, Steve, I believe you said you had the team working on 17 new projects this year. Can you touch on any one of those?
I mean, listen, you see Rosa, you see Ava, you see Stan, we've got Rio under development, you see Romeo, you see Instant Management, Hope, Rad Light My Way. I don't have that screen up in front of me right now as to what all those projects are. The dog and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay. Any time frame on any more information on Rio?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be launched in September. We're really working very hard on it. I took some resources off Stan to commit to Rio. Rio, from, whereas Stan is a new market, where the legacy technology is so ancient versus what Stan brings, right? But it's like a new market, which means we've got to educate and promote and do demos. Like there's a bigger lift before that spaceship kind of takes off. Rio is a evolution of an existing market that I think, it's my best estimation, to somewhere between 250 and $500 million in sales a year. So I kind of have some more commercial reasons to get Rio moving fast and make it awesome. So we've been doing work on Rio for those reasons. And I would expect, what I've been telling key dealers is that in June, I'll have some preliminary information for them. July and August, prototypes. September, we do the full public launch. Will we launch it publicly beforehand? Maybe. I don't know. But the September date is our outside date for public launch.
Okay. Question from Coach P. Are you looking to add any more members to the board?
Always. If folks have experience, connections, valuable input, we're going to say yes. Mark Fulmer really runs the board now. I haven't been on a call for the last several meetings, partially due to travel schedule, partially because I want Mark to run it. I think we get more out of it if I'm not on the call. Sometimes not being present is good leadership. So I kind of think we're at that point. But if you're interested, or if you know someone who's interested, reach out to me or whatever. You can always reach me. What I am considering is a different level of a board as well. I don't know what we'll call it, but folks that are, like ex high level law enforcement, ex politician, ex military, folks with really strong connections. So there's a couple things I'm working on in that area. Hopefully, one of which is going to bring me to Capitol Hill sometime in May, if I can work it into my schedule. So it's crowding up. But yeah, that's the board. Craig, if you see one more good one, let's hit it. Otherwise, we'll call it a great AMA. Great questions.
All right, we'll leave it there, and any other ones we have, we'll go for next month. So, Steve, I'd like to thank you for taking your time out on this busy day to answer our questions from the AITX community and the Rad Army. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for notifications, and check out the other YouTube videos on this channel. And also check out the AITX.ai website, radlightmyway.com, radsecurity.com, and make sure to follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Reinharz.
Craig, thank you so much for the work that you do. Much appreciated. Thanks for being with us for so long. And one of the reasons why I work so hard to connect is because of your early engagement.